The SUV's taillights vanished, but Elian did not move. The adrenaline that had been a fire in his veins cooled, leaving behind a brittle, crystalline clarity. He had won the night, but only a battle. Corbin and his masters would not relent. They would recalculate, return with different tools, perhaps a drone network, satellite surveillance, or less negotiable men. The salt flats, vast as they were, would become a hunting ground. He could not stay in Halcyon. The shack was a target, its solitude now a vulnerability. As the first hint of dawn bled into the eastern sky, turning the salt from silver to a dull, bloody pink, Elian made his plan. He was a geologist, not a spy, but he understood patterns of erosion, of concealment. The best place to hide a grain of sand is on a beach. The best place to hide a world-altering truth was in the world itself. He returned to the shack only long enough to gather essentials. He took his most detailed survey maps, a water distiller, a high-capacity power bank, and the small, rugged satellite communicator he used for emergencies. He left everything else. The faded photos of colleagues long gone, the dog-eared geology texts, the cot where he'd dreamed of a quieter past. He packed the plaster cast with meticulous care, cushioning it within his rucksack, a secret heart to his new existence. His destination was not a place on any of Meridian's corporate maps. It was a region his own surveys had labeled Zone 7B, Anomalous Subsidence. A network of deep, collapsed salt caves, unstable and unmapped, where the crust was thin as an eggshell. It was a place even the company's prospectors had avoided. The journey took 2 days on foot. He moved mostly at night, using the stars, his compass, and the deep, ingrained knowledge of the land to navigate. During the day, he rested in the lee of rock formations, the heat haze shimmering over the plains, his ears straining for the sound of an engine that never came. The silence was no longer his companion. It was a canvas for his paranoia, every shift in the wind a potential threat. He reached the lip of the subsidence zone on the second evening. It was a jagged scar in the earth, a labyrinth of crevasses and yawning sinkholes that descended into a profound darkness. The air coming from below was cool and carried the sharp, ancient smell of deep salt. He found a narrow fissure hidden behind a calcite formation and began his descent. It was like entering a negative cathedral. The walls, sculpted by millennia of water and pressure, glowed with a faint, internal luminescence in the beam of his headlamp. The only sounds were the scuff of his boots and the occasional distant ping of shifting rock. It was the perfect hiding place. No satellite could see him here. No signal could easily penetrate. For a week, he established a routine in the deep silence. He found a dry cavern with a freshwater seep, his new home. He rationed his supplies. And each day, he worked on his sole purpose. He powered up the satellite communicator, its blinking light a profane intrusion in the primordial dark. He would not send the data to Eris Thorn. That was the first place they would watch. Instead, he used an old, nearly forgotten protocol from his university days, a decentralized academic data-sharing network designed to be robust and difficult to censor. He began to encrypt and transmit the files, the high-resolution photographs, the stratigraphic analysis, the precise GPS coordinates, not as one large packet, but as thousands of tiny, encrypted fragments. He sent them to the public servers of universities from Oslo to Tokyo, to open-source archaeological forums, to the digital archives of obscure geological societies. He tagged them with keywords only a handful of the world's most radical researchers would understand. Pliocene anomaly, pre-Clovis contradiction, Halcyon imprint. He was seeding the truth, scattering it to the winds of the global intellect like a dandelion casting its spores. Meridian could silence one man, but could they silence every curious graduate student, every stubborn tenured professor with a pet theory? One night, as he prepared another data burst, the communicator chimed with an incoming message. It was not from an address he recognized. The header was simple: a friend of Eris. The message was brief. They are digging at Halcyon. Heavy equipment. They're not searching, they're erasing. The stratum is gone. You are officially a discredited lunatic who fabricated data for fame. Corbin has been reassigned. Be warned, the new team is military. They have different rules. You are a loose end. Elian's blood ran cold. They weren't just covering it up, they were rewriting the physical world, scraping the evidence from the very face of the planet. His heart ached for the loss of the site, a profound geological grief. But then a fierce, defiant pride surged within him. They are too late. The original was gone, but he had made a perfect copy. He had made 1,000 copies, and they were already floating in the digital ether, waiting for the right mind to piece them together. He knew what he had to do. He could not stay in the cave forever. He was the key. The data fragments were safe, but his testimony, his credibility as the discoverer, was the catalyst needed to make them credible. He had to get the physical cast to a bastion of independent science, a place with the fortification to withstand Meridian's pressure. Using the communicator, he plotted a route north, towards the border and the renowned Polaris Research Institute, a fortress of academic freedom. It was a journey of hundreds of miles through some of the most desolate terrain on the continent. On the morning of his departure, he stood at the mouth of his cave, looking out at the blinding white world. The salt flats were no longer his refuge, they were his arena. He adjusted the straps of his pack, feeling the weight of the plaster cast settle against his back. It was not just a fossil, it was a flag. He was no longer Elian, the forgotten geologist of Halcyon. He was a messenger, and the message was older than history itself. He took a first determined step into the light, leaving the safety of the darkness behind. The hunt was on, but he was no longer the prey. He was the one who carried the proof.